My nephews showed up at my door. At 4 a.m., shivering in pajamas, their parents locked them out again. I made one call that changed everything. Hey Reddit. So my sister and her husband locked their kids outside in freezing weather. 3 times. And the third time, those boys showed up at my door at 4 in the morning, barefoot, in pajamas, lips turning blue. I made one phone call that night. Now I have full custody, and my sister is losing her mind about it. Buckle up because this is going to be a wild one. So I, 32 male, am an electrician. Union, good pay, steady work, own my house outright. I've got a decent life going. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I built it from the ground up. My older sister Megan, 35 female, married this guy Kyle, 34 male, about 9 years ago. They have 2 boys, Ethan, 8, and Mason, 6. And for the past few years, I've watched my sister slowly disappear into whatever the hell Kyle turned her into. Let me break this down for you guys because the backstory matters here. Megan and I used to be tight. Like, really tight. She's 3 years older than me, and growing up, she was the one who had my back when nobody else did. I still remember this group of guys in middle school who used to wait for me after school and shake me down for lunch money. Megan found out and showed up one day, all 5'3" of her, and told them if they touched me again, she'd make sure the whole school knew about the time Danny Kowalski peed his pants at the 7th grade dance. They never bothered me again. She helped me study for the SATs when I was struggling. Stayed up late quizzing me on vocabulary words until we were both delirious. She loaned me money when I was broke in college, never asked for it back, never even mentioned it. She drove 4 hours to help me move into my first apartment, stayed the whole weekend to help me unpack, stocked my fridge because she knew I'd forget to buy food. That's who my sister used to be. Confident, loud, take no crap attitude. The kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it. Then she married Kyle Bennett, regional sales manager for some pharmaceutical company. Makes good money on paper. Drives a Lexus, one of those sleek silver ones that costs more than my first house. Member of one of those expensive gyms downtown with the smoothie bars and personal trainers. Never actually goes, but loves telling people he's a member. You know the type. All surface, no substance. On paper, the guy looked like a catch. Good job. Nice car. Good looking in that generic way that works well in headshots. He could be charming when he wanted to be, which was usually when he wanted something. He'd smile and joke at family dinners and make everyone laugh. And you'd think, man, Megan really lucked out with this one. In reality, the guy is a complete piece of work. I noticed it early. First couple family dinners after they got married, I'd watch him make these little comments to Megan. Nothing obvious, just enough to cut. Death by 1,000 paper cuts, you know? You're wearing that? Said with a little laugh like it was a joke. But I saw Megan's face fall. She'd picked that dress out special. Maybe if you cooked like my mother, the kids would actually eat. In front of everyone at Thanksgiving. While she was still holding the turkey she'd spent all day making. I watched her face go red, while Kyle just shrugged like he'd said nothing wrong. Can you not embarrass me in front of people? After she told a funny story about something that happened at work. She'd been laughing, finally loosening up, and he just shut her down. The table went quiet. She didn't tell another story the rest of the night. Classic controlling behavior, right? Textbook stuff. And watching my confident, loud sister shrink into this nervous, apologetic shell of herself over the years, it made me want to put my fist through a wall. But every time I tried to bring it up, Megan would brush it off. That's just how he is. You're reading too much into it. He's under a lot of stress at work. I should have pushed harder. I should have said something more. But I kept telling myself it wasn't my place. She was a grown woman. She could handle her own marriage. And every time I tried to bring it up, she'd shut me down so fast it made my head spin. One Christmas, I pulled her aside and asked if everything was okay at home. She looked at me like I'd suggested the sky was green. Of course everything's okay. Why wouldn't it be? Then she went right back to the party like nothing happened. That was the last time I tried to have that conversation for a while. The thing is, I watched my sister change over the years. The woman who used to call me every Sunday just to check in stopped calling. The woman who used to have opinions about everything started agreeing with whatever Kyle said. She stopped wearing the bright colors she loved and started wearing the muted stuff Kyle preferred. She stopped laughing as loud, stopped taking up space. It happened so gradually that I almost didn't notice. Like watching someone gain weight. You don't see it day to day, but then you look at old photos and realize how much has changed. And then she had kids, and everything got worse. Ethan came first, then Mason 2 years later. And here's what I started noticing. Kyle treated those boys the same way he treated Megan. Not physically, I never saw him hit them, but the way he talked to them. The expectations, the criticism, the way he'd make them feel small for the tiniest mistakes. Mason spilled juice once at a family dinner. He was 4. Kids spill things. It's what they do. Kyle's response? Are you stupid? What's wrong with you? To a 4-year-old. Over juice. Ethan got a B on a spelling test in first grade. First grade. Kyle grounded him for a week, said he was disappointed in him. The kid was 6. I watched those boys walk on eggshells around their father. Watched them flinch when he raised his voice. Watched them turn into these quiet, nervous kids who never laughed too loud or moved too fast because they never knew what might set him off. And Megan? She just let it happen. Made excuses. Said Kyle was strict but fair. Said the boys needed discipline. Said I didn't understand because I didn't have kids of my own. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't understand. But I knew what I was seeing. And it wasn't discipline. It was control. It was fear. It was 2 little boys who never felt safe in their own home. So that's the backstory. That's what I was dealing with. And then, 3 months ago, everything changed. September 23rd, around 11 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Someone knocks on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was late. I figured maybe a neighbor locked themselves out or something. Opened the door and there they were, Ethan and Mason, standing on my porch in their pajamas. No shoes, no coats, just 2 scared kids in the dark. Uncle Ryan, can we come in? I pulled them inside immediately. What happened? Where are your parents? Ethan wouldn't look at me. Kid was 8 years old and he already had that look. The one where you can tell someone's used to bad things happening and has learned not to react. Mom and Dad were fighting really loud. The neighbors called the cops. We got scared and hid in the playhouse out back. When we tried to come inside after things got quiet, the door was locked. Locked. Their parents were fighting so loud, the neighbors called the cops. And afterward, instead of checking on their children, they locked the doors and went to sleep. Let that sink in for a second. How long were you outside? Ethan shrugged. Maybe an hour? We kept knocking, but nobody answered. An hour. In September. At night. In their pajamas. I kept them overnight. Made them pancakes in the morning. The good kind, with chocolate chips. Because those kids deserved something nice. Called Megan around 9 a.m. Oh my God, Ryan, I'm so sorry. Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying all night. We didn't hear them. We were exhausted and fell asleep. They were locked out, Megan. They walked 6 blocks to my house in the middle of the night. It was an accident. They shouldn't have gone outside in the first place. I actually had to pull the phone away from my ear for a second because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They were scared. You and Kyle were screaming at each other loud enough for the neighbors to call the cops. What were they supposed to do? Silence. Then quiet. We're working through some things. Marriage is hard. This isn't about your marriage, Megan. This is about your kids being safe. They're fine, Ryan. Stop being dramatic. I'll come pick them up. And I let her. Like an idiot, I watched her load those boys into her minivan and drive away, and I told myself it was a one-time thing. A mistake. It wouldn't happen again. She'd learned her lesson. I wanted to believe that so badly. I wanted to believe that my sister, the same woman who once drove 4 hours in a snowstorm to help me move, would never let her kids down like that again. That this was rock bottom and she'd bounce back. But here's what I've learned about rock bottom. Some people don't bounce. They just keep digging. 2 weeks later, October 8th, it happened again. This time they showed up around 9:30 p.m. A little earlier, a little warmer outside. But same deal. Pajamas, no shoes, scared out of their minds. What happened this time? Mom and Dad were fighting about money, Ethan said. He was already starting to sound tired. Not physically tired, soul tired. Like he was used to this. We went outside because it was so loud. The door got locked. Like it was an accident. Like doors just lock themselves. The next morning, Kyle answered when I called. Megan was still asleep. His voice was cold, flat, completely unbothered. Like I was calling about a parking ticket. They need to learn not to wander off, he said. Maybe next time they'll think twice before leaving the house without permission. I almost lost it right there. They're 6 and 8, Kyle. They weren't wandering off. They were scared, and you can't lock them outside as punishment. I'm their father. I'll discipline them however I see fit. This isn't discipline, it's neglect. They could have been hurt, hit by a car, picked up by some stranger. Do you understand how serious this is? Don't tell me how to raise my kids. He hung up on me. And here's where I messed up. Here's where I should have made the call. But I didn't. I told myself Megan would wake up, that she'd see what was happening, that some maternal instinct would kick in and she'd protect those boys the way she used to protect me. I gave her another chance, and she blew it. November 17th, 4:03 in the morning, 36 degrees outside, and someone's knocking on my door. Not loud, not frantic, just this persistent tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. The kind of knock that sounds almost polite, like whoever's out there is afraid to make too much noise, like they've learned that being loud gets you in trouble. I stumbled out of bed, checked the peephole, and my heart stopped dead in my chest. Ethan and Mason, standing there in nothing but their pajamas, no coats, no shoes, breath coming out in little white clouds, shivering so hard I could see it through the door. I yanked that door open so fast I nearly ripped it off the hinges. Uncle Ryan! Ethan's voice was shaking bad. His lips were blue, not purple, not pale. Actual blue, like he'd been eating a snow cone except there was no snow cone. Just cold. So much cold. Mom and Dad locked us out again. Again, that one word hit me like a baseball bat to the sternum, because he said it so matter-of-fact, like getting locked outside in freezing weather was just something that happens sometimes, like it was normal. Get inside, both of you. Now. They shuffled in, both of them shivering so hard their teeth were chattering. Mason's Spider-Man pajamas were soaked with dew from the grass. His little feet were bare and dirty, leaving wet prints on my hardwood floor. Ethan wasn't much better. His pajama pants were too short, hitting above his ankles, and his feet were caked with mud from walking through God knows how many yards to get here. I grabbed every blanket I had, couch, closet, even pulled the comforter off my own bed, and wrapped them up like little burritos, cranked the heat to 78. Then I knelt down in front of them and tried to keep my voice steady, even though everything inside me was screaming. How long were you outside? Ethan looked at his brother, then back at me. His eyes were red, not from crying, from cold. Maybe an hour. We tried knocking. They wouldn't answer. We waited on the porch for a while, but it was so cold. Mason started crying and I didn't know what to do, so I said we should come here. An hour. These kids had been outside for an hour in 36-degree weather, wearing nothing but thin cotton pajamas. No coats, no shoes, no hats or gloves, nothing. Mason didn't say anything. He just cried, silent tears running down his cold red cheeks, snot dripping from his nose, whole body trembling. Kid was 6 years old, and he'd already learned that crying loud doesn't help, that nobody comes when you call, that the people who are supposed to protect you sometimes don't. That broke something in me right there. I made hot chocolate, hands shaking so bad I spilled water on the counter, dropped the spoon twice, had to grip the edge of the sink just to steady myself. But I got it done. Handed them each a mug and watched them wrap their little hands around it, watched the color slowly come back to their faces. Then I documented everything. Photos of their wet pajamas piled on my bathroom floor, their red, chapped hands. Ethan's bare feet with dirt and grass stuck to the soles from walking 6 blocks in the dark. Mason's tear-streaked face, still visible even as he finally started to warm up. I checked the metadata on every picture, confirmed the timestamps, saved everything to a folder on my laptop labeled Evidence, went back through my phone and found the photos from September and October. Time-stamped, dated, proof. Then I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and made the call I should have made 3 months ago. Child Protective Services. The emergency hotline. A woman answered on the 3rd ring. Professional, calm. Like she'd had this exact conversation 1,000 times before. Illinois DCFS. This is Patricia speaking. How can I help you? My name is Ryan Mitchell. I need to report child endangerment. The words came out easier than I expected. Like I'd been holding them in for months and they were finally escaping. Can you describe the situation? My nephews, Ethan, 8 years old, and Mason, 6, were locked out of their home tonight. They showed up at my door at 4 a.m. in their pajamas. No shoes, no coats. It's 36 degrees outside. They'd been out there for about an hour. Are the children safe now? They're with me, sleeping on my couch. But this is the 3rd time in 3 months this has happened. I could hear typing through the phone. The 3rd time? Yes. September 23rd, October 8th, and tonight, November 17th. I have photos, timestamps, everything documented. More typing. Then, we'll send a caseworker first thing this morning. Can you keep the children until we arrive? Absolutely. They're not going anywhere. Mr. Mitchell, you did the right thing calling us. I know it's not easy to report family. Yeah, it's not. Part of me felt like I was betraying my own sister. We'd been so close growing up, she'd protected me. And now I was calling the authorities on her. But then I thought about Ethan's blue lips, Mason's silent tears, the way they'd looked at me when I opened that door, like I was the only safe place left in the world. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. At 6 a.m., my phone started blowing up. Megan, call after call after call. I didn't answer. She called 20 times between 6 and 6:45. At 6:47, she left a voicemail. Ryan, where are my kids? Kyle woke up and they're gone. Their beds are empty. Call me back. Now! I need to know they're okay. Ryan, please. I deleted it. At 7:15 a.m., someone pounded on my door. Not knocked, pounded. Hard enough to rattle the frame. The kind of knock that says, I will break this door down if you don't open it. I looked through the peephole. Kyle, red-faced, angry, still in his own pajamas, chest heaving like he'd run the whole way here. The irony of him standing there in sleepwear, while his kids had nearly frozen to death in their sleepwear, was not lost on me. I opened the door but blocked the entrance with my body. Feet planted, arms crossed. Where are my kids? He demanded. Inside, sleeping. Get them. We're going home. No. His face went dark. Dangerous. Excuse me? They're not going anywhere. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I didn't say that last part out loud, but I was thinking it. You can't keep my kids from me. You locked them outside in freezing weather, Kyle. They walked 6 blocks to get here, barefoot, in their pajamas, in the middle of the night. That's the 3rd time this has happened. That's none of your business. You made it my business when they knocked on my door at 4 a.m. We fell asleep. It was an accident. 3 times isn't an accident. It's a pattern. His jaw tightened. He took a step forward, aggressive, getting in my space like he probably does with Megan. Here's the thing about guys like Kyle. They're used to people backing down. They throw their weight around, raise their voice a little, puff out their chest, and most people fold. That's how they operate. Intimidation. But I'm not most people. I'm a union electrician. I've worked job sites with guys twice Kyle's size who would eat him for breakfast. I've had contractors try to short me on payment. I've had foremen get in my face over deadlines and code violations. I've dealt with plenty of blowhards who think being loud makes them right. I don't fold. Give me my kids. Now. No. I'll call the cops. Go ahead. I already called CPS. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out right there on my porch. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked like a fish, gasping for air. You did what? You heard me. They're sending a caseworker within the hour. Ethan and Mason stay with me until they arrive. He called me something I won't repeat here. His fists were clenched at his sides. That vein in his forehead was throbbing. For a second, I honestly thought he was going to swing. Part of me hoped he would. I'd been waiting for an excuse for years. But he didn't. Guys like Kyle are cowards at heart. They only fight people who can't fight back. They only yell at people who are too afraid to yell back. When they meet someone who stands their ground, they crumble. So he just stood there, jaw working, fists clenching and unclenching, trying to figure out how to fix this. Except there was nothing to fix. The wheels were already in motion. Get off my porch, I said, before I call the police myself. He stared at me for another 10 seconds. Then he turned and walked away. Didn't say anything, just walked. I closed the door and let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline, from the realization that I'd just changed everything. The caseworkers arrived at 8:43 a.m. 2 of them. Patricia Reyes, mid-40s, calm and professional, wearing a blazer over jeans. And her supervisor, David Webb, quiet man in his 50s, with reading glasses and a notepad who took notes constantly. Mr. Mitchell, we spoke on the phone. Thanks for coming. Can we see the children? Ethan and Mason were awake by then, eating cereal at my kitchen table. Lucky Charms, Mason's favorite. They looked up when the caseworkers walked in. Small, scared, but alive, warm, safe. Patricia's voice was gentle. Hi, boys. I'm Patricia. This is David. We're here to help. Is it okay if we talk to you for a few minutes? Ethan looked at me. His eyes were asking a question. Is this okay? Can I trust them? I nodded. It's okay. Tell them the truth. All of it. They interviewed the boys separately. Ethan first, in my living room, then Mason in the kitchen. I sat on the back porch during the interviews, waiting, trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. When they finished, David came outside. How long have you been concerned about the children? 3 months, since the first time they showed up here. And you didn't report it then? I thought it was a one-time thing. My sister apologized, said it wouldn't happen again. I wanted to believe her. But it did happen again, twice more. Each time worse than the last. He wrote everything down. I showed him the photos, the timestamps. September 23rd, October 8th, November 17th. The progression was damning. Each incident later at night, colder outside, more dangerous. Then Patricia came out. Her face was neutral, but I could see something in her eyes. Something heavy. Ethan and Mason corroborate your account. They've been locked out multiple times. They're afraid to go home. She paused. Mason said he doesn't sleep well anymore because he's scared he'll wake up outside. My chest tightened. A 6-year-old. Scared to close his eyes because he thinks his parents might lock him out in the middle of the night. What happens now? We open a formal investigation. interview the parents, inspect the home, and if the children are unsafe, we file for emergency custody, place them with a relative, probably you, until the case is resolved. Megan showed up at 9:30 a.m. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, eyes swollen from crying. She'd driven over the second Kyle got home and told her what happened. Ryan, please, I need to see my kids. Patricia stepped forward. Mrs. Bennett, I'm Patricia Reyes with DCFS. We need to speak with you and your husband. Megan's face crumbled. You called CPS on me? On your own sister? I called them on the situation. The boys were locked out 3 times in freezing weather. This isn't about you, Megan. It's about them. We didn't mean to. Intent doesn't matter. They could have gotten hypothermia. They could have been hit by a car. Abducted. Anything could have happened. Do you understand how serious this is? They're fine. They're traumatized. Ethan told Patricia he checks the locks 5 times before bed now. Mason said he's scared to sleep because he doesn't know if he'll wake up outside. Does that sound fine to you? She started crying. Real tears. I'm their mother. Then act like it. Kyle pulled up 10 minutes later. Saw the DCFS van in my driveway. Stormed over like he was ready to burn the whole neighborhood down. You have no right, he started, pointing at me. David cut him off. I'm David Webb, DCFS supervisor. We need to speak with you and your wife, now, about why your children were locked outside in 36-degree weather at 4 in the morning, for the 3rd time in 3 months. That was an accident. 3 accidents? Patricia's voice was calm but sharp. That's a pattern, Mr. Bennett. Not an accident. You can't take our kids. We can, and we will, if we determine they're unsafe. They interviewed Megan and Kyle for over an hour. I stayed inside with the boys, making them lunch, trying to keep things normal, but I could hear enough through the window to get the picture. Kyle, they're my kids. I'll discipline them however I want. This is government overreach. Patricia, locking children outside in freezing temperatures isn't discipline. It's endangerment. The law is very clear on this. Megan, please, we'll do better. We'll be more careful. We love our children. David, this isn't about being careful. This is about your children's safety. And right now, we don't believe they're safe in your home. At 11 a.m., Patricia came back inside. We're recommending emergency custody. The children will stay with you pending a court hearing. When's the hearing? Within 72 hours. A judge will determine next steps. I called my lawyer that afternoon. Robert Callahan, family law attorney, 18 years experience. Good guy, straight shooter. We'd worked together before on a contract dispute. He got me paid. I trusted him. Ryan, what's going on? I told him everything. He was quiet for a long moment. I can file for emergency custody. But you know this is going to get ugly, right? Your sister's going to fight you. Hard. Let her. This could destroy your relationship with her. Permanently. Family stuff like this doesn't heal. The relationship's already destroyed, Robert. She chose her husband over her kids. Over and over again. I'm choosing the kids. Okay. I'll have the paperwork ready by 3. The court hearing was scheduled for Friday, November 20th, 3 days away. Megan called me 47 times between Monday and Thursday. I counted. I answered once. Ryan, please, my children, I love them. You have to believe that. Then why did you lock them out? It was a mistake. 3 mistakes in 3 months. Do you know what Mason told the caseworker? He said he's scared to sleep at night because he doesn't know if you'll let him back inside. He's 6 years old, Megan. 6. And he's afraid to close his eyes. Silence. Fix yourself. Leave Kyle. Get help. Do something. But I'm not letting those kids go back until I know they're safe. Really safe. Not your version of safe where they end up on my porch at 4 a.m. You're ruining my life. No. You ruined theirs. I'm just trying to fix it. She hung up. The hearing was brutal. Megan and Kyle showed up with their own lawyer, Gregory Palmer, slick suit, expensive watch, condescending smile that probably worked great on juries, but made me want to punch him. The kind of lawyer who bills $400 an hour and thinks that makes him smarter than everyone else in the room. Your Honor, Palmer said, this is a gross overreaction by a vindictive uncle with no children of his own. My client's made some minor mistakes, falling asleep, not hearing the children knock, but there's no evidence of willful neglect. This is simply a family matter that has been blown entirely out of proportion. Judge Helen Crawford flipped through the case file. Sharp eyes. Zero patience for nonsense. She'd been on the bench for 30 years. Seen it all. Mr. Palmer, are you aware this happened 3 times? Your Honor, accidents happen. 3 times? She looked at Megan and Kyle. You accidentally locked your children outside in freezing weather 3 separate times? In 3 months? Kyle shifted in his seat. We're working on better communication. Communication? The judge pulled out Patricia's report. Your son told the caseworker he's afraid to go home. Your 6-year-old said he cries at night because he thinks you'll lock him out again. He checks the doors 5 times before bed. Does that sound like a communication problem to you? Megan started crying. The judge wasn't impressed. Mrs. Bennett, I've read Mr. Mitchell's statement. I've read the DCFS report. I've reviewed the photographic evidence. Your children walked 6 blocks in the dark, in November, in their pajamas with bare feet, to escape a situation where they felt unsafe. Explain to me why I shouldn't terminate your custody right now. I love my kids. Megan's voice broke. Love isn't enough. Judge Crawford's voice was ice cold. Love doesn't keep children warm at 4 in the morning. Love doesn't protect them when they're locked outside in freezing temperatures. Love doesn't mean anything if you can't keep them safe. She looked at me. Mr. Mitchell, are you prepared to take custody of these children? Yes, Your Honor. Full-time. Long-term. Whatever they need. Do you have the resources? I'm an electrician. Union. Steady hours, good pay. 3-bedroom house, paid off. I'm financially stable. And I love those kids like they're my own. I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe. She nodded. And the children. Do they want to stay with you? Yes, Your Honor. Ethan told Patricia he feels safe at my house. Mason said he doesn't want to leave. Judge Crawford closed the file. Emergency custody is granted to Ryan Mitchell. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, you will have supervised visitation only. 2 hours per week. You will complete court-mandated parenting classes and psychological evaluation. We reconvene in 6 months to reassess. Megan gasped. 6 months? Be grateful I'm not terminating your rights entirely. This is your chance to prove you can be trusted. Your only chance. Don't waste it. The gavel came down. Kyle's face was red, furious. He grabbed Megan's arm and pulled her toward the exit. But before they left, Megan turned back. You're destroying our family, she hissed at me. No, you did that. I'm just making sure the kids survive it. That night, I made spaghetti and meatballs. The boys' favorite. We sat at the table together, and for the first time in months, nobody flinched at a loud noise. Nobody checked the locks. We just ate dinner like a normal family. So, I said, we're official now. You're stuck with me. Ethan grinned. That's okay. You're a pretty good dad. Dad, not uncle. Dad. Mason climbed into my lap. Can we stay forever? Forever, buddy. The next 6 months were the hardest of my life. Supervised visitation every Saturday, 2 hours. A social worker present the whole time, taking notes, watching everything. Megan cried through most of them. Kyle barely talked, just sat there with his arms crossed, radiating resentment. The boys were polite during visits. Careful. They hugged their mom, said they loved her, but they never asked to go home. Not once. Not ever. At night, things were harder. Mason had nightmares. Bad ones. He'd wake up screaming, convinced someone had locked him outside, convinced he was freezing. I'd sit with him for hours, just holding him and telling him he was safe, that nobody was going to lock him out, that I was right down the hall. Ethan had anxiety. He'd check the locks on every door before bed, then check them again. Sometimes I'd find him at 2 a.m., walking through the house, testing doorknobs. He couldn't sleep unless he knew, absolutely knew, that no one could lock him out. I didn't know how to fix that. I'm not trained for this stuff. I'm just a guy who knows how to wire a house and make a decent pot of chili. But I knew how to be there, how to show up, how to prove day after day that this house was different. I enrolled them in a good school, got them into activities. Ethan joined soccer, made friends, started smiling again. Mason got into art. Kid had real talent. He'd draw these elaborate pictures of superheroes saving people. Sometimes the superheroes looked a lot like me. I didn't mention it. Just hung every picture on the fridge like it belonged in a museum. Saturday morning became pancake morning. We'd make them together, all 3 of us, and the boys would argue about toppings and make a mess of my kitchen and laugh like they hadn't laughed in years. Slowly, things got better. The nightmares became less frequent. The lock-checking faded. They started to relax, to trust. Then one night in March, Mason said something that stopped me cold. "Good night, Dad." He'd already turned over in bed. Didn't even realize what he'd said. I stood in his doorway for a full minute, just breathing. Dad, me, the guy who never planned on being anyone's father. The 6-month review hearing was in May. Same courtroom, same judge. Megan and Kyle had completed their classes, passed their evaluation, done everything required. Palmer smiled. Your Honor, my clients have done everything required of them. They've proven they're capable parents. It's time to reunite this family. Judge Crawford looked at the reports. The question isn't whether they've changed, it's whether the children feel safe. She looked at Ethan and Mason. They were sitting next to me, holding my hands like they were afraid someone was going to rip them away. Ethan, Mason, where do you want to live? Ethan looked at Megan, then at Kyle, then at me. His hand tightened around mine. Uncle Ryan, he said quietly. I want to stay with Uncle Ryan. Megan made a small, broken sound. Mason? Mason grabbed my hand with both of his. I want to stay with Uncle Ryan, because he doesn't lock us out, and he makes us pancakes, and he always answers when we knock. Judge Crawford closed the file. Permanent custody is granted to Ryan Mitchell. Megan stood up. No, they're my children. They were your children, but you failed to protect them. Multiple times. The children have expressed a clear preference. I will not force them back into a situation where they feel unsafe. The gavel came down. Final. The next 2 years went fast. I converted the spare bedroom into a proper room for Mason. Bunk beds at first, because that's what he wanted. Said he'd seen them in a movie and thought they looked cool. Then I finished the basement so they'd each have their own space, their own rooms, their own doors with locks that they controlled. Ethan picked blue paint for his walls. Not just any blue, this specific shade called Midnight Storm that he found in a magazine at the hardware store. Kid had specific taste. Mason wanted green with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Took me 3 weekends to get those stars positioned just right. Worth every minute when I saw his face the first night he slept in there. Ethan made the travel soccer team. I drove him to practices 3 times a week, sat in a folding chair on the sidelines every Saturday, yelled myself hoarse at his games. Some of the other dads gave me weird looks at first. The single guy with no ring who showed up with 2 kids. But after a few weeks, they stopped looking. After a few months, we were grabbing coffee together before games. Ethan scored the winning goal in the regional semifinal. Trophies still on the mantle. Probably always will be. Mason got into a gifted art program at the community center. His drawings went from stick figures to actual portraits in about 6 months. He made one of me for Father's Day. I framed it, hung it in my office. Every time I look at it, I think about that night he showed up on my porch with blue lips and bare feet. That scared little kid who couldn't even cry out loud anymore because he'd learned nobody would come. Look at him now. Happy, safe, thriving. Kyle tried to make trouble once. About 8 months after the custody ruling. Showed up at Ethan's soccer game, started yelling at the ref, then at me. Said I'd stolen his kids. Said he was going to sue me into the ground. Said a lot of things, actually, none of which I'm going to repeat here. Security escorted him out. He got a restraining order for his trouble. Never showed up again. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state for work. Good riddance. Megan filed for divorce a year after that. Moved into an apartment across town. Got a job at a dentist's office. Good for her, I guess. She called me about 6 months after the divorce was final. Ryan, I've changed. I want more time with the boys. 2 hours every other Saturday. Same as before. Please, I'm their mother. You were their mother. Then you locked them outside in the freezing cold 3 times and let your husband treat them like garbage. You don't get a do-over on that. She cried. I didn't budge. She hung up. The thing is, part of me still misses my sister. The real Megan. The one who used to have my back. The one who drove through snowstorms and stayed up late quizzing me on vocabulary words. But that person has been gone for a long time now. Maybe she'll come back someday. Maybe she won't. Either way, I'm not holding my breath. My job now is protecting those boys. Everything else comes second. The boys kept doing their Saturday visits. Megan showed up on time, tried to make conversation, brought gifts. The boys were polite, hugged her goodbye, but they never asked to stay longer, never asked to go back. Last month, Ethan turned 10. I threw him a party in the backyard. 15 kids from his soccer team. Bouncy house. Enough pizza to feed an army. He blew out the candles and made a wish. What did you wish for? Mason asked. Can't tell you. Then it won't come true. Later that night, after everyone left and Mason was asleep, Ethan found me in the kitchen cleaning up. Hey, Dad? Yeah? I didn't actually make a wish. I just pretended. How come? Because I already have everything I want. He helped me finish the dishes. We didn't talk much. Didn't need to. The next morning was Saturday. Pancake day. Mason came downstairs in his pajamas. Hair sticking up everywhere. Chocolate chips or blueberries? I asked. Both. Both it is. Ethan wandered down a few minutes later. Grabbed the orange juice, poured 3 glasses, set the table. We'd done this routine 100 times now. Dad? Mason said, mouthful of pancake. Yeah? Can we go to the aquarium today? I looked at the calendar. Nothing scheduled, just a free Saturday. Yeah, buddy. We can go to the aquarium. Mason grinned. Ethan nodded. And we finished breakfast together. Same as always. That's it. That's the whole story. My sister locked her kids outside in the freezing cold, and now they're mine. I didn't plan on being a dad. Never thought I had what it took. But those boys needed someone, and I was there. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel, and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.